It used to be that politicians, the big thing that they did was present themselves as average people, folks, part of the American middle class, or at least in the case of a rich guy like Franklin Roosevelt, they presented themselves as understanding the needs of the middle class and working people. The idea that a rich donor might give money to a candidate's campaign and then expect that candidate to vote their way, for example, was shocking. It was considered bribery. Teddy Roosevelt outlawed it in 1907 with the Tillman Act. So back in 1952, when Senator Richard Nixon was running for vice president with Dwight Eisenhower on that ticket, Democrats pointed out that he'd taken $18,000. That's around $150,000 in today's money from some fat cat donors. Americans were so shocked by the allegation that Nixon had to go on national television to address those charges. It was his second most famous speech of all time, right behind his "I am not a crook" speech, as he tried to reassure Americans that he would never, ever, ever cast a vote in a particular way or enrich himself because of his position as a senator. Remember, in that actually, probably none of you remember it. I don't remember it. I was a year old when he gave it, but in that speech, it's a famous and iconic speech in which Richard Nixon talked about how his wife had, instead of a fur coat, she had a good Republican cloth coat, and how his campaign, unlike his opponent, his campaign did not hire his wife, even though she was a competent and skilled stenographer. Like that was the only job that women could get back in 1952. But he still didn't hire his wife because that was the right thing to do. And in fact, the only gift he had ever taken, by the way, he was lying through his teeth. Nixon had been so bought off and mostly by the mob. He was probably one of the most corrupt politicians, certainly one of the most corrupt high-level politicians of the 20th century. But he said that the only gift that he took was this little black and white dog, this puppy that was shipped all the way from Texas to Union Station in Baltimore, where he went down and picked it up, him and his wife and their two daughters, and 6-year-old Tricia just thought it was so cute, and she named it Checkers. And he said, and I'm going to keep that dog. It's not going to influence my vote, but I'm going to keep that dog. And, he humanized himself. And it helped him and Dwight Eisenhower win the election. We like candidates who are average people, or at least play the role of somebody who can understand average people. Harry Truman, after he left the White House, drove back to Missouri in his own house, in his own car, lived in a modest house until his death. Jimmy Carter walked to his inauguration. The Washington Post wrote about this right afterwards. But what undoubtedly will be most remembered about Jimmy Carter's inauguration was that long walk from the Capitol to the Executive Mansion. It took him 40 minutes to cover the mile and a half. As he walked along with Amy prancing, jumping, and dancing along at his side, he was shattering recent presidential practice and legended the idea that a president must be remote and removed, shattered the legend that a president must be remote and removed from the people. After he left the White House, Carter chose not to get rich. It's why he's still a beloved president. Instead, he was building Habitat for Humanity houses and working for world peace. Even Richard Nixon, the most criminal of the 20th century presidents, knew how important it was to seem like an average American when he was running for public office. Then came the 80s. Then came the Reagan administration. This whole greed is good, Gordon Gekko, yeah, let's say. And he had this lavish inaugural ball, cost millions and millions of dollars, paid for by millionaires and billionaires. It was beamed by satellite to 100 cities where other rich people could pony up and have a Reagan inaugural ball in their own town. And America changed with that Reagan presidency. To paraphrase John Steinbeck, after the Reagan era, the American working class people began to believe that they're merely temporarily inconvenienced millionaires. And so today we have a quarter billionaire, maybe even a half billionaire when you take the $100 million that he's given to his sons. Mitt Romney, a quarter billionaire who refuses to reveal the last decade. Heck, he refuses to reveal the last 3 years of his tax returns or the full details of his net wealth. although Vanity Fair has found that he has bank and brokerage accounts in a variety of tax havens. That includes an account in Bermuda, the value of which was not disclosed in his tax returns. It also includes $30 million stashed away in the Cayman Islands, where there are no taxes. Then there's $3 million tucked away in a Swiss bank account. And Romney also has an undisclosed amount of money sitting in bank accounts in Luxembourg and Ireland as well. Devin Dwyer of ABC News notes that what little we do know about Romney's efforts to hide his wealth, both from the American people and from the IRS, are pretty surprising. He wrote, and I quote, "The company in question, Sankaty High Yield Asset Investors Limited, is described by government financial documents as a Bermuda corporation wholly owned by W. Mitt Romney. Yet as both Vanity Fair," and I'm still quoting from the AP, "yet as Vanity Fair and the Associated Press note in new reports, it has never appeared on the candidate's financial disclosure forms. Limited details on its existence only recently came to light when Romney released his 2010 tax return under public pressure." End of quote from the AP. Then Vanity Fair. Vanity Fair came out with this piece over the last couple of days, a big expose on where Mitt Romney stashes his money. Hint, hint, overseas tax shelters. Nicholas Shaxson wrote this thing. He writes, quote, "Even after examining that return," and he's talking about the one tax return that Romney has shared with us, his 2010 one, where he made $23 million and paid 13.9% income tax. He said, "Even after examining that return, we have no idea what is in this company. But it could be valuable, meaning that it is possible Romney's wealth is even greater than previous estimates. While the Romney spokespeople insist that the company has paid all the taxes required by law, investments in tax havens such as Bermuda raise many questions because they are in jurisdictions where there is virtually no tax and virtually no compliance," as one Miami-based offshore lawyer put it. So now the Romney, Koch, Karl Rove pitch, and by the way, Romney worth hundreds of millions of dollars, the Koch brothers worth billions, tens of billions of dollars, Karl Rove worth multiple millions of dollars. Their pitch is that Mitt Romney should, and all of them, should keep their tax breaks and their Cayman accounts, because you, average American, when you hit it rich, you'll want them too. I'm not making this up. This is their pitch. It's going to be interesting to see if working class Americans buy it. If they do, then it means that the mass hypnosis that working people have been under since Reagan came along, that greed is good and we'll all be rich one day, is still unbreakable. If they don't, if Mitt Romney's held to account and called out for what he really is, a pirate capitalist who cares more about finding tax loopholes and increasing profits than what's good for our nation, then it could be our nation's first big step forward toward cracking down on the oligarchs like Mitt Romney who've dragged the United States into financial crisis. I mean, think about this for a minute. In a lot of countries, when really, really rich people are running for office and they're using their own money or they're using the connections that they have, getting rich to get all kinds of money, they're referred to as oligarchs. Oh, there was an oligarch who ran against Putin in Russia. I forget his name, but he was an oligarch. He was a Mitt Romney. Why don't we refer to our oligarchs as oligarchs? What is it that is uniquely blind about America and Americans that causes us to say, oh, yeah, he's just a rich guy? Now, rich guys in other countries who are, like running economies and trying to run government, they're referred to as oligarchs. Bernie Sanders at least says, hey, we're moving toward oligarchy. What is it? Oligarchy or democracy?